I now call upon Deepa Dhanraj to share her experience about this evening.
I'm going to speak in English. Sorry about that. Let me begin by thanking Arun and Tamil Studio for, honoring me with this award. I really appreciate the work of Tamil Studio. I think it's an extraordinary organization because it believes in cinema education. And there are very few organizations that do this anymore. When I look around and see that 90% of you are so young, that to remind you that we had in the good, not in the past, and if you talk about from the 60s to the 70s, we had very good film society movements in India, which were very active, which did similar kind of work. And they have sort of dropped away. So I'm really very honored to get this award, and I'm very deeply appreciative of the work you do. Because without cinema education, there's no point, without exposure to a different kind of cinema, watching, talking, discussing, reading, it's very difficult to develop a sensibility to critically look at films and enjoy films. So the work you do is really important, and I want to mark that. I really don't know what to say about my own work. I think Geeta and Leena and everybody, they've spoken so much, so I don't think I'll say too much about my own work, except few things, very few things. One is that I don't think I would have been a filmmaker if I wasn't part of the women's movement. So I think the origin or where the ideas come from, where the politics come from, where the passion for staying with the subject, engaging with the subject, really for me, I inhabit both these worlds equally. And for me, it's very important that what comes out of the movement, what is made into a film, also returns to women. So this part of my work, it's not just about making films, it's about screening them. And in the days when we first began, we were doing work on 16mm. And to share with you that the budget was so pathetic, we had no money. So we used to shoot on a very peculiar thing. It was called reversal stock. And it was made in Czechoslovakia. And basically, once you developed the negative, it became a positive. And that was it. So the shooting ratio was less than 1:1. And we had to be very, very careful when we turned the camera on. We shot on Bolexes. And now I'm giving you almost film history, right? None of you, this digital universe, and all of you who work with digital cameras cannot imagine those times when you have a hand-cranked Bolex, which can go for literally 3 minutes. After that, we got 400-foot magazines, which was 10 minutes, and extremely expensive Kodak stock. So something like a wall, for example, was shot on Kodak stock, and you literally had to count the seconds, and I would sit with my face near the cameraman's ear and say, that's it, because I was timing it, the magazine would run out in 10 minutes. So these are the conditions in which we worked. And the editing systems that we worked on, from Moviolas to Steenbecks, there was some disgusting thing called the pig sync, where you rolled it physically and you made cuts by hand. I think, Lenin sir, you would know all this. But I'm telling you all this to say that finally when these prints were made, and we had 16mm print cans and big cans, and it was about really putting those cans on top of a bus, regular district buses, and going to villages, stealing electric lines from poles, stopping national highways, because that was the cleanest place anywhere to screen a film. You had to stop the traffic on the national highway. You had to get a sheet, you had to steal power from somewhere. You had to convince the truck people that they can come and watch the film. And you had to show the film at least 4 times, because people come when they want to come to see the film. So it's these kind of experiences, I think, where a film is conceived, the people you work with, the group you work with, returning to screen the films, what you understand from those screenings, when you show it to people, those discussions, that kind of loop, is something that I have tried to preserve in my work through all this time. And if you are interested in documentaries, and I strongly urge all the young people here, I know that mainstream film, fiction film is very attractive, but don't give up on documentary, because there is something in documentaries that really connects you. It connects you to people, it connects you to movements, and there is something about documentaries that can make a difference. I have seen it in my own work, that if you make a film that really challenges existing orthodoxy, existing political orthodoxies, if you make something that shows up a mirror, really goes against the grain of what is the existing orthodoxy, like everybody has talked about something like a war, I just want to share that at the time when we made it, nobody thought that the family planning program in India was so brutal and so coercive to poor women. Most middle class people you spoke to said, the reason why we're so backward is because we're so many. But nobody wanted to go beyond this simple, this kind of propaganda. And once we started exploring this issue and the horror of really what the Indian government was doing to poor women, not only in these camps where women were sterilized in 45 seconds each, almost like a factory line, not only in the illegal clinical trials where Indian women were being experimented with horrific drugs, but also how do we puncture this middle class idea where caste and class map so easily onto the poor. But what I'm trying to say is once the film was made, concretely, what the film was able to do, we managed actually to stop one clinical trial of a very dangerous vaccine because of the scenes that we shot in Safdarjung Hospital, where you have a woman who's recruiting women for the trial and she says, this medicine has no side effects. This medicine will cause no problems, right? And faced with this, so you can use films as evidence, even in a court of law, not just to persuade people, but there are many ways in which even concretely this work can have an effect. So I strongly urge all the young people here that, think about documentary also, try and connect with it. It is I've been doing it now for 36 years. It's something that, I have to say that when I was listening to everybody, it was really like one of those rest in peace speeches, where somebody actually said, pass the baton already, and I have to tell you, I'm still working. I'm still working. My current film is on the Rohit Vemula suicide in Hyderabad Central University. Because I'm originally from Hyderabad and I have been following that story for about 6 months. I have just come back from Una in Gujarat, where I was witness to a rally where almost 18,000 Dalits had actually took the pledge to stop caste-based occupations, which include skinning of cattle, include manual scavenging, and all such work. So there is, so that's just to say that, it's not over yet. So, so if there's anything I've learned, I think from this period of mine, this time, is that to do documentary is really, you have to be someone who loves people. You can't get away from that. Because unlike fiction film, where you are with a set of actors or with a crew for a brief period of time and then it's intense and then you depart, the thing with documentary is those relationships stay with you. Those relationships stay with you. I have relationships with people whom I film for such a long period. And there is something inherently extremely valuable in this participatory way of working, which I have worked out through these years, you know. See, how do you, when you approach people for a film, it's really a process where what is it they want to, how do they want to represent themselves? What do they want to tell you about their lives? What do they want to put into a film? And that whole negotiation between what is your interest, your idea, and their lives, and how does that connect, and what do you negotiate and try and create together. That is the, and if that is done with mutual trust, you know, it's not about speaking for, you know, a lot of people say this, that we have to give voice to these people, etc. That's all rubbish. For me, it's not about speaking for, it's how do you stand with, you know, and how do you negotiate that standing with the group you're going to work with. And when that happens, and when that happens because there is really something politically that you're doing together, it's not a sentimental thing, you're doing something politically together. And when that happens, I think there is a bond, there is something that emerges in that which is authentic and which shows in the work. So these are just a few things I'd like to share. Again, I want to thank you for being here, for those of you who've watched the films, and I really want to thank Arun, because for me, I think the biggest prize was that my films were shown in 22 places in Tamil Nadu, and I think for any filmmaker, I think that is something fantastic, you know. Because for documentary filmmakers, as you know, I always used to joke and say we are the narrow casters, you know. The other guys are all into broadcast and mainstream. We are in that narrow lot where we have to organize our screenings. It's not enough. Many young people come to me and say, ma'am, what do you need to be a documentary filmmaker? And they expect me to say things like brilliance and talent and blah, blah. And I just say, you know what? It needs a lot of commitment and a lot of patience and stamina. If you have the stamina, not just to conceive a film, to create it, and then after that, what do you do with the film? That's also up to you. And you have to get the film out. And luckily in India, you know, because of the huge number of documentary filmmakers growing year by year, which is very encouraging, that we have so many avenues where people want documentary, whether it's in colleges, in schools, trade unions, women's groups, routinely ask for documentaries. So this has become our screening culture. And I want to say it's as important a screening culture as showing a film in a cinema. In fact, it's more because you're there. When you can be there with people, the interaction is something remarkable. The other thing that documentary filmmakers do, and because there was a lot of stuff about censorship, but I do want to say, you know, the other thing that we have been doing for 30, 35 years is fighting with the censor board. It's not been mainstream cinema that's fought with the censor board. They have always negotiated, done something, you know, some jugaad, and got out of it. But if you look at, I think there are at least 3 films of mine where the struggle took 1 year, right? One film didn't even get a certificate. You look at Anand Patwardhan, you look at all the legal work on film censorship, most of the, if you look at the court record, they're all from mainly, not all, mainly from documentary filmmakers. So there is a way also that these filmmakers, it's not just the films you make, but how you hold these institutions accountable. And because Anurag is here, I must share that when the Udta Punjab came up, and many of us in the docu-circles, you know, we held our breath and said, will they buckle? Or will they hold out? And we were glad that we didn't buckle. But it was there, you know, because this thing, because there's so much money riding on it. I mean, so will they accept the cuts or not? So this discussion did happen. So I'm just saying that there are all these aspects to why a documentary practice is more than just about cinema. So I think having said this, I'll stop and